What would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned being in this industry for 9 years? That's a pretty broad question, but from where you started to where you are today. Hey everyone, welcome to TDR's Trade of Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales, and some big news out of Washington this week pertaining to cannabis. So let's get right into it as we welcome in our two guests this week. As usual, our lead financial writer, Benjamin A. Smith. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be here. How are you guys doing?
Good, and happy to bring back a familiar face to the podcast. He is the managing director and founder of Entourage Effect Capital, one of the leading private equity firms in the U.S. cannabis industry. Matt Hawkins, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you two guys. How are things?
Not bad. I was talking to other guests this week because I saw you down at Benzinga, and I asked the question off the top, did you stay dry? Because as my viewers have asked, what happened? And we got 30 inches of rain in 3 days. And you actually were staying up in Fort Lauderdale for the conference where a lot of the damage was done. But did you survive? Like, what on earth happened there? It was crazy.
It was crazy. It was, but there was really no... What's interesting is I was able to sit outside and watch it because we were, obviously I was either sitting outside where I had a covered patio, or we actually were at a restaurant where we were sitting outside and it was covered as well, but there was no lightning. It was just constant rain for however many hours in a row it was, I think. And I've never seen anything like it.
Airport flooded. I saw some of the parking garages. You'd think you're at a waterfall up in the mountains. It was crazy how much water was coming in. But all right, speaking of crazy, let's begin. News earlier this week from Washington where lawmakers from both parties reintroduced the Secure and Fair Enforcement, otherwise known as the Safe Banking Act. And I know a lot of viewers will probably be rolling their eyes because here's this topic again. But this, which let's face it, the cannabis industry views as a financial lifeline. Matt, what's your reaction to this latest news? Is there much there?
Well, I would love to say there's something there, and but the skeptic in me, just having been through this 7-8 times already, says what else is new? But
yeah,
this is bicameral in nature, so it presented both the House and the Senate at the same time. It's got more bipartisan support than any of the historical votes have. Schumer absolutely has to have a win. I don't think he's going to be as bullish on some of his bells and whistles he tried to add in December.
Yeah.
He needs to get something passed, or he needs a bill that can get passed for his own credibility. So maybe there's some factors at work here. If the only caveat I throw out there is that there's still all this other stuff that can just, derail a piece of legislation like this, like the budget reconciliation. I mean, look, they're going to spend so much time negotiating that this can very well just get kicked to the sidelines. But I hope not. I hope I'm wrong.
Ben, do you see it differently?
No, I'm with Matt. I think it has the best chance to pass that I've seen. This is a dual Senate House bill as well, and that's important. It has like 38 co-sponsors, a few on the other side, Republican side of the aisle. And I think Matt's 100% correct that, the credibility of Chuck Schumer is on the line. A lot of people are not happy with, the promises that he made 5 years ago now, and nothing has come through. And he's been the majority leader, Senate leader. So he was responsible for that action. And I think people want to see things done. Now, the only thing is after this news took place, there's been some word that Chuck Schumer might add social justice measures back into the bill. So it remains to be seen what's going to be negotiated in, and that remains a sticking point because he's already, we've already been through that before, but we shall see. I do think that this stands the best chance so far.
Yeah. Matt, can you maybe walk my viewers through, because there's 4 or 5 signatures that are needed on the House side, and you guys are saying this is different from the past. So can you maybe explain why this being reintroduced is different from, say, back what happened in December with Chuck Schumer?
Sure. Yeah, I think this, for whatever reason, the sponsors are both representatives and senators, and they're going to both chambers at the same time. That hasn't happened yet. This is the first time that's happening.
Okay.
And so that to me is it's almost like you're saying, okay, it's a pre-packed deal almost. Obviously, we know that's not the case.
Yeah.
But as opposed to it going through all the mechanisms that is, getting it voted on by the House and then going to the Senate, this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And to Ben's point, I mean, look, there's bipartisan support here that wasn't there in previous times.
Yeah. Well, safe banking, as we know, is viewed as just a few months ago as being an important stepping stone to further advance federal reform, which pales in comparison of importance to the rescheduling regulatory review being conducted by the HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra right now. There's also some question about just how much safe banking will help the bigger MSOs, which already have access to a full suite of banking services. So given the rescheduling announcement that's in the pipeline, what would you say overall, is the importance of the safe banking passage for the industry?
It's still, I mean, I don't think that, I think even the MSOs can benefit from, for example, a whole suite of products that B of A would offer. Now, that's not going to happen overnight, but just working lines of credit, all the different, the irony is that, with interest rates where they are, the cost of money relief isn't going to be as significant as it would have been a year or two ago. So,
good point.
Just more bad news for the industry. But nevertheless, it's still, you're talking about, I mean, the high yield rates have gone up just as far. So you're still clipping, in some cases, 10 percentage points off of what your effective rate is. So that helps no matter what. And not to mention the fact that if this does offer safe harbor and offer the ability for institutions to come in at least with their toes in, that's a big win.
Yeah, I think that's some of the biggest questions I have, that how much of that capital markets language is going to be included. To my knowledge, it's supposed to be limited. It depends, what's actually negotiated in the final.
I think you're right. I think it is limited. And I think that you're spot on. But if there's any type of safe harbor for at least you can trade, because right now it's hard as ever. And so hopefully that will be, part of it when it's all said and done. But you're right. I think this is coming out with limited capital market language.
So last time you were on, you're saying there's no new money in the industry. But if this were to pass, do you think things will change?
I think hopefully a little bit, but we're still dealing with macro pressures.
Yeah.
Even if cannabis opened wide up, there's still a lot of money that's out there that's just going to be holding on to cash no matter what the opportunities are, just given, recessionary pressures that exist right now. And so we'll see.
So in that initial,
as I've said all week this week in New York, I'm out of the prognostication business.
So Matt, in that initial rush, we saw MSOs climb quite significantly that day that it came out. I think it traded, close to 7 million shares on the ETF. In your view, is that mostly retail, or do people that in the industry, were they starting to put money in? Or I know institutions can't really participate right now, so that's moot. But did you see any sort of bigger accredited investors say, okay, things have gotten low enough, I'm going to start going in. I think this is going through.
I think it's primarily retail. Now, are there some aggregates that are putting some capital to work that are, more, family office driven? Maybe, but it's certainly it's certainly not the wide swath of it.
What do you think? I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if I asked you this last time you were on, but just the proxy that was submitted by Terrascend. I think maybe I did ask that, but Terrascend moving forward with the TSX. What should investors read into that, if anything?
Well, in talking to senior Terrascend folks, they're extremely confident this is going to happen.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's not the New York Stock Exchange, it's not the NASDAQ, but it is the big board in Canada.
Big step.
And so, it's still a significant step to the for the industry. And if Terrascend does it, that means that look, the industry is like lemmings. There'll be followers, and then if it becomes 4 to 5 companies, and then 10 to 12 companies, you're talking about some pretty significant, capitalizations that are in the TSX. I think you'll see liquidity be increased.
Matt,
Yeah.
do you think this will be limited to Terrascend because of their special circumstances with canopy growth and some of the agreements, or do you think other big MSOs can join into that same sort of arrangement?
I think it becomes a structuring thing. And I think it's, we saw it with the way back when with the acreage canopy deal. People started structuring deals like that to, to be able to just take advantage of what's going on right now. I mean, look, until the rules of engagement change in cannabis, you better be creative. And this is just an example of creativity at its finest.
Yeah. Being creative, that is a common term that we use a lot in cannabis, is it not?
Right.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, we actually were at Jason's place down for the event, for a fundraising event. Got a chance to speak to quite a few people, but Congressman Dean Phillips was there. I don't know what to think of like what his speech was, but at least we're talking about advocating and a lot of the executives going to Washington and advocating for the industry. But overall, we briefly saw you at the Benzinga conference. I viewed it as big crowd, biggest crowd they received, but a very somber mood related to cannabis. What was your big takeaway while you were there?
You're spot on. I think everybody is, at a point to where we need some good news. And obviously if SAFE passes, that'll be a step in the right direction and then would be considered pretty damn good news.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Now,
psychedelics was on the third day, but I'll get into that later. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ben.
no, I just wanted to. Last time you were on the show, Matt, I asked you to put on your retail hat. I know you do a lot of private equity investments with Entourage, Effect Capital, but putting on your retail hat for a moment. If you were underexposed to the sector, given the news that is coming out, and given the fact that safe banking probably has its best chance, I think that's the consensus sort of opinion out there. Have things gotten low enough or close enough with safe banking and with Becerra's rescheduling announcement that you'd be looking to dip your toes in if you're just personally buying for your own portfolio?
Well, I think I also told you last time, Ben, that without giving investment advice, I will say that I think things are as low as that. I just don't know how much lower they can go. Now, will it? Probably, but I see the upside way more higher than I do, anything below where we are now. So if you have the patience and you have the stomach and you have the checkbook to dabble, then I think this is, the timing could be good.
Yeah. How long have you been involved in this space now, if you don't mind me asking?
There's gray hair from 2014 when I started.
So
we've had some really good years in those since then.
I'm sure
we
you have.
Remember, yeah. But there's probably of those 9+ years, there's really only been 3 that have been just really, really difficult. Everything else has been pretty deadgum exciting.
Forward-thinking statements now. Then you've been here for 9 years, and I'm assuming that you're going to be around for a while still. But what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned being in this industry for 9 years? That's a pretty broad question, but from where you started to where you are today, if you had to really,
the main thing is that this industry is way more expensive than I thought it was going to be. I mean, the amount of capital necessary to really make any business work in this space
it's interesting.
Is way higher than anything we've imagined.
Now, on that end, Matt, I'm going to jump in here because, we've had Boris Jordan on, for example, Executive Chairman Cureleaf, and others who've projected that CapEx is coming to the end of the CapEx cycle because they're not expanding into as many states as they already have. Their footprint's mostly built out. So are you more encouraged about some of the public companies and even maybe some of the private companies that haven't gone public that, capital expenditures are coming down to a point where cash flow becomes a possibility for the majority of the sector?
Look, I mean, he's right. I mean, if you're an operator and you've been in this space for more than 3 to 4 years, whether you're a single state operator or a multi-state operator, you're right. You're at the point where the build out is probably complete. So my point, I think, in answering Shad's question was getting to that point has been so ludicrously expensive but yeah, if we can stop having the CapEx expenditures going forward, that's going to be a huge windfall for the industry. And if we can somehow get some relief from some type of legislation to either, some type of rescheduling to get rid of 280E would be, then all of a sudden this industry becomes one of the most profitable industries on the planet. But prior to that, we got to continue to scrape and claw.
Yeah. Well, the vibe that I got, like you said, somber at the conference for a couple of days. Last time you were on, you'd mentioned about how certain MSOs are at risk here for the upcoming debt cliffs. I don't want to say any names right now, but that only further reiterated itself when I was at the conference, and there was a lot of talk about who some of those companies were and some of the challenges they're going to face. But do you not believe like everything that we discussed a month ago further reiterates, your point as to what you were saying about some of these, certain debts that are going to be maturing? Yeah.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
In fact, they've only become more apparent, and they will continue to become more apparent unless more capital at cheaper rates enters the space. Because refinancing something that was put in place 3 years ago at whatever 12, 13, 14% with paper that's now 16, 17, 18. What good does that do?
Yeah.
But in some cases, that's what it's going to take to avoid some type of action taken, aggressive action taken by a lender.
And the companies that have a longer runway.
And by the way, it also, if this is also making the assumption that those lenders have capital to place too, which isn't necessarily a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. And some of the competitors that have longer runway, they are just rubbing their hands to think like assets that we can basically acquire that we could not even fathom 12 months ago. They're ready to pounce, right?
100%.
Yeah. All right, sir. Well, we won't keep you too long. I know you've been you're in New York City right now. How's the weather there? Is it okay?
It's okay right now. It's supposed to rain starting later today and tomorrow, and then I'd head back to Texas on Sunday.
Sure, the city's happy. They finally got Aaron Rodgers. Who's to think? Maybe the Jets finally make the playoffs, but we shall see. Crazy draft this week, but good to see you. Always great to catch up. And it was great seeing you, obviously, a couple weeks ago in Miami. But we will follow this news closely, and everything breaks. We'll make sure to have you back on. And we'll ask our viewers any questions they want to reach out to you. But appreciate the time.
You bet, guys. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Hey everyone, thanks for watching, and if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information, share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.